a couple of things just to start off about what I've noticed and observed off of watching this Florida offense. And that's what we're watching tonight. We're watching Florida's offense from a year ago against Georgia down there in Jacksonville. A couple of things that I noticed. Man, I've got a lot to say about Dan Mullen. Not all positive, okay? But you're not going to hear me crack on this dude's offense in terms of what they do schematically and how they design plays, the route schemes in which they run, and how they run them. You're not going to hear me say anything bad about what this dude does in the passing game. There's some questions I've got about what they're doing in pass protection. There's some questions that I've got about what they're doing in their run scheme. But in terms of what they do throwing the football, how they use their weapons, the dude gets it done. Okay. My questions about Dan Mullen revolve strictly around, what he does in recruiting. I think he's a pretty meddling recruiter. I think he hangs out right in the middle of the pack, guys. I mean, look, for everyone's going to hear that statement. They're like, well, Brooks, he's been recruiting in the top 10, 9, 10, 12 range since he's been there at Florida, and he's going to continue to do so. Guys, it's the University of Florida. You got to have a pulse down there to recruit in the top 10. The only guy in the last, 2 decades that hasn't recruited fairly well is Jim McElwain. And we saw how that went overall. I mean, it's just a bad experience there for the Florida Gators in that whole 4-year stretch or 3-year stretch, however long it was that he was even there. So that's throw that out. Everybody else, even Will Muschamp during his 4-year run at Florida, recruited exceptionally well. I believe he brought in a number 1 class at one point as well per 24/7 Sports. So everybody recruits well at the University of Florida, especially in times now where Miami's down, Florida State's down, all those big schools down there, not really competing in terms of national limelight and national powerhouse in terms of that. Typically, Florida has 3 really good Division I programs right now and Power 5 programs. And right now, that's not the case. So, of course, he's going to recruit fairly well. But again, I think he's a middle of the pack type of recruiter. If you took him somewhere else, and like a Kentucky, and made him do what Mark Stoops has been doing in terms of the recruiting trail, he's not going to do it so hot. Okay, he didn't at Mississippi State. They didn't recruit exceptionally well at Mississippi State. He schemed exceptionally well at Mississippi State. So that's my pitch on Mullen. I think he's a great offensive coordinator. Now, the other things in terms of being a head coach, I don't think he's very good at game management. I'm going to show you in this football game last year, he burned 2 timeouts in the first 3 drives offensively. And a lot of it was because he didn't have the correct personnel on the field. And one play, he literally had 12 men in the huddle. He broke the huddle with 12 men. That's not on anybody other than the offensive staff and the head coach. That's poor game management. Against Texas A&M this year, he burned 2 timeouts in the first 7 minutes of the third quarter in a game in which they needed every advantage coming down the stretch in that football game and lost it, okay? He went on to, say some things about it being a packed house and you want to pack the swamp, okay? So some of these minor coaching adjustments that you have to make, it's not all about just scheming up offenses and doing well schematically. I think the smaller aspects and more important aspects in some cases, as a head coach, he fails to make those things, click. He fails to get those things done. And that's not even going to talk about what happened last week, in which I completely, believe, based off watching what I saw, okay, yeah, your quarterback takes a cheap shot. It was a cheap shot. It was a Hail Mary attempt, I believe, right there before the half. And Missouri's guy takes an extra 2 steps and lays into Kyle Trask. It wasn't targeting. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a late hit. That's what it was. They missed the call. And then Mullen's running across the field trying to get at referees and get in their face before halftime. Next thing you know, the whole, Florida Gators roster basically is standing at midfield getting into a brawl with Missouri. Where what should have happened is if the coach is going to go out there, he's going to control the situation, calm down the situation, and not be extremely emotional and rather almost irrational and lead things into a further direction in terms of hostility. And that's exactly what happened. Next thing you know, a couple of guys are getting suspended. Suspended. That was weird. Suspended for this week's game against Georgia. So you can't have those things. The best coaches in college football don't do those types of things. They go out there, if they're running in the midfield in the middle of what appears to be about to be a brawl, they're certainly separating things, not instigating things, which is exactly what I thought Mullen was doing on Saturday against Missouri. So those are my, brief observations. The defense, man, y'all know all about Todd Grantham, Georgia fans. Y'all know what that is. They're horrendous on third down. They're giving up almost half of their third downs this year, 49.2% on third down. That's awful. They've given up 7 of 9 fourth down conversions. That is awful. All right. So 7.5 third downs per game, not good. That third and Grantham stuff, I tweeted about it today. That is real. It's 100% real in terms of how bad he is on third down. And he likes to send the blitz. Good for him. Couple of things about last year's observations on this football game. Georgia thought that they could do some things slant wise and stunt wise. Thought that they could get Florida's offensive line with their eyes in the wrong place. And that's exactly what happened.